Allegedly, there is evidence that would link the IRGC and some of the gangs that operate in Europe, even on the basis of sort of armed robberies, drug dealing. Is this something that you're aware of, Reza?
They've extended that all the way to Latin America. I mean, part of the connection that the regime in Tehran had with Caracas and, of course, also with Cuba has been one of those axes that a lot of people in Venezuela could tell you about. The footprint of the IRGC all the way in the Western Hemisphere. And this is not something new. Some of the attacks that were carried out against, let's say, the synagogue in Argentina, that was another operation that was launched by the regime, again, targeting the Jewish community. There are so many examples over the 4 decades that you can demonstrate the pattern of behavior. And this is not just an incident. This is actually part of their entire strategy to intimidate the region and keep all of us hostage in the process.
The United States of America in several states has moved to ban and designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a proscribed terrorist organization. The European Union has been stalling on declaring both the IRGC and the Muslim Brotherhood as terrorist organizations. Why do you think that Europeans are stalling on this, especially given that a large selection of majority Muslim countries, including the UAE, Jordan, Saudi, Egypt, have designated and prescribed the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization? Why is Europe stalling on this?
Maybe there are some people here who think they know better than Arabs and Muslims in the region about these two organizations.
Is that it, you reckon?
Can I find another answer to the question?
I don't know. Perhaps they're being, bribed, corrupted. Or perhaps they're incredibly naive. I'm not sure.
Well, actually, I think it's at the end of the day some degree of naivete, not understanding the scope of what it really means. Because, a lot of people that have not been direct witness of the level of atrocity or radicalism and extremism and hatred and bigotry and that exists, that is embedded in that ideology, would not comprehend it unless they spend just a day of living in Iran to understand what is really going on, how this ideology is poisonous, it's toxic, it's beyond radiation if you had a nuclear meltdown. It is that devastating. And I think that you are beginning to see the consequences of that radicalism and extremism manifesting itself now on European soil itself. That level of extremism, of radical Islam, is beginning to be felt in Europe. And I warned the Europeans many, many years ago that it will eventually end in your own backyard. I remember a conversation I had with a member of the House of Lords in the early 80s. And I said, the way Europe looks at the Middle East is like a far distant area. It doesn't affect us. They're fighting each other over there. And I remember telling him, this is probably 1982, that one of these days it's going to be in your own backyard. And guess what? It is now in your own backyard. And unfortunately, there's a certain angle of thinking here, mostly the leftists. The minute you say that, they say, oh, you're Islamophobic. Do you think that people in Saudi Arabia or in the UAE or in Iran, when they talk about radical Islam, they are Islamophobic? They are Muslims. Can't you tell the difference? And when you call something for what it is, you've been accused of painting them the wrong way. That's the kind of hypocrisy and double standard that exists. But the reality is that, yes, the Muslim Brotherhood or the Islamic regime are fomenting extremism, radicalism, hatred, bigotry, and discrimination. That's the essence of their ideology. What we want as Iranians is a country where we can guarantee every single citizen of Iran, irrespective of their ethnicity, their religious beliefs, or political affiliation, justice and equality under the law, putting an end to any form of discrimination that this regime has been the root cause of. And it's not just us being affected, it's affecting many others around the world. That is not the direction to go. And it is, for us, when we look at the West, what do we look at the West for? We're not looking to Beijing, we're looking to the West. Why? Because these are the established democracies where we assume these liberties and these values are in fact cherished and protected. But why is it that when it comes to countries like ours, all of a sudden, It's no longer a question of human rights. It's a question of, well, maybe they think differently. Maybe we should try to understand them. This is what they were saying at the beginning. Let's try to understand them. They may be different. We have to be able to believe in that. I'm sorry, but bigotry is bigotry. Radicalism is radicalism. You cannot discriminate discrimination.
It's the Karl Popper paradox, the tolerance of the intolerant. One of the things that really marked me over the last few months was seeing a poster of the Supreme Leader, the Ayatollah, held by a leftist in a keffiyeh at a demonstration in London, and the poster that she had said, "Be on the right side of history." What stage have we reached if we've got these radicals who side with the Islamic regime over and above the protesters that are being massacred? How do you feel about what some people are describing as the Islamization of the West? There has been wave after wave of mass migration. Many of those have come from majority Muslim countries. Do you think that warning that you issued to that lord in the 1980s, is that coming true in terms of demographic replacement as well? Is this something that concerns you, of sort of losing them as ideological allies? Is this something that you're concerned with?
Well, I would hate to see a scenario whereby we will settle for things have to get worse before they start getting better. Are one of these Western countries. I will use one example specifically only because there's a reason I'm bringing this up. Belgium, let's say. So I know this gentleman who actually wrote a book about Iran, who is doing some research as well as some teaching, and he was telling me that my apartment is 1 mile away from the Royal Palace in Brussels. Yet in my own district, there are some Islamists that are pushing legislation to conduct not only the Sharia law, but to segregate buses so women and men ride in separate buses in Brussels. Now I ask you as a European, have we come to a point where this country says not only you can come to a country as a guest, and instead of assimilating and respecting our values and our culture, you're dictating to us that we should now practice the Sharia law in Europe and incorporate it into the system? If that's the way Europe wants to end up like, then honestly, I'm lost for words. If that's where we have to get to that point. What I'm telling you is that Iranians, and I know many other countries in the region, are desperate to liberate themselves from this extremism, from this radicalism. That nothing good came out of this so-called Sharia law. Because in the name of Sharia law, the first thing that Khomeini did was to undo what the previous regime had brought in terms of equality, women and their rights with the family law plan. That was the first thing that they abolished. And then everything took a downturn. This is the consequence of a regime that was advocating Sharia law. We know how disastrous it's been. Just look at Iran and the state of affairs there. And now you think that's just a good example to follow for Europeans? Because they'll end up like Iran pretty soon. The writing is on the wall. And all you need to do is to ask the people who have actually endured it to tell you what it actually means. I don't want the Europeans to end up being where Iranians are today only to discover what it actually means. I'm just trying to save you time. But if you insist on that, so be it. But then you have only yourselves to blame.
Reza, as we come to the end of this interview, we've talked a lot about facts. But you are an Iranian. You are the son of the Shah. You're the Crown Prince. You are one of the main figures of the Iranian opposition. What do you feel when you see these images coming out of your home country? How does it feel to be in exile away from your people as they face this great tragedy?
Well, it's not that I like to live in exile. I was forced to live in exile. I wouldn't be alive today if I were back in Iran. They would have eliminated me, and I'm not good being dead to anyone.
No.
So it was a matter of survival. But the nation is not calling me. They're calling my name. They want me to lead this transition. They have faith in me. They have trust in me. They know that for 47 years, I stood the course. I stood committed to my values. I told them that's what all I want for Iran is to have a secular democratic system to replace this religious dictatorship. Iran and Iranians deserve better than that. A country with such level of history, such level of culture, such level of talent. I mean, look at the world today. Yes, many Iranians had to be forced to exile as well or migrate. Most of them are running the show in many of these countries as successful entrepreneurs, doctors, scientists, and they would have preferred to do that back home. But their only crime was they were either Jewish or Baha'i or Muslims or maybe a member of the LGBTQ community or even atheist, and they couldn't be in their country as a result of immediate persecution. That's what I say. Iran deserves so much better, and we proved it before. Iran was there. Iran was one of the most successful growing economies in the Middle East. Other countries will come to take model out of Iran. The Korean delegations would visit Iran. From other countries, they will visit Iran. Our GDP was 5 times that of North Korea at the time. Today, we've become South Korea. We can't even compete with the first 150 economies of the world, although we have gas and oil, Iran and its potential. That's not what Iran deserves to have. And as an Iranian, you know, I'm passionate about, and I'm not talking about blind nationalism. You know, we are in a real world. We like to be able to be friends with our neighbors. We have that kind of relationship so long as it's based on mutual respect and, you know, fair trade. But I think Iran can do so much better, and we've proven it before, and I know we can do it 10 times better if only the opportunity is given to us, and I think the opportunity will come soon, because this regime is on the verge of collapse. It's just a matter of time. What can expedite its collapse is for the world this time to take strong stance with the Iranian people and help us bring together a regime that has been no good to anyone but only its own survival, and is willing to do anything, including killing tens of thousands of people just to survive. This cannot fly anymore. So as an Iranian, we'll do whatever we have to do. And I'm the first one to tell my fellow compatriots, we cannot rely on anybody else than ourselves. However, it will be so much better with less loss of life and much faster if indeed the world decides to this time stand on the right side of history, meaning on the side of liberating a nation that deserves better, and against an evil ideology that has been so destructive at home and abroad. This is what's at stake, and this is a moment in time where history can change for the better. So as Iranians, we will fight our fight. We are not waiting for America or Europe to do anything. We're just telling them, why don't you think of Iranians as your best partners post-regime? We will be there to make sure that the world is a safer place. We will be there to make sure that there's an immediate end to radicalism and terrorism and nuclear threats and whatever else that the world is preoccupied with. We'll be able to provide an opportunity for our nation and your country to flourish and benefit economically, to have a better future for our next generations. We'll be able to provide Europe with the security of energy dependence that right now is only being controlled by Russia mostly. Iran can provide Europe with this energy. Iran can reverse the trend of migration and more migration as a result of the status quo continuing that will already flood an already saturated Europe and what have you. Plus, we will eliminate all this radicalism that is now affecting European communities as well, and so on and so forth. There are so many more things at stake here than just talking about the principle of liberty. Nobody disagrees with that. But for God's sakes, let's cut the double standard and the hypocrisy. This is your opportunity to tell the Iranian people, we're with you and not against you. That's our expectation in a very pragmatic way, and we will remember. We will remember who was with us in these hard times and who wasn't. It's as simple as that.
I wish you and the Iranian people all the very best. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.